Do you know the story of a noble woman whose life was marked by tragedy, yet became a beacon of hope for thousands? A devoted wife, a grieving widow, a mother who lost her children. Her path to holiness was not paved with comfort, but with hidden courage. She quietly shaped one of the most unique religious orders in the Church, defying the expectations of her time. This is the story of Saint Jane Frances de Chantal, the founder of the Visitation order. Before beginning, drop an Amen in the comments if you're ready to learn more, and hit the like button if you're excited to dive deeper into this extraordinary story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow along with the next inspiring stories of the saints. Chapter 1. Childhood, a noble family in Dijon. Jane Frances Frémyot was born on the 28th of January 1572 in the historic city of Dijon, France. Her birth took place during a period of beauty and turbulence, as France was marked by both cultural growth and religious unrest. From the start, Jane's life was a gift entrusted to God's providence. She was born into a household that would form her deeply in faith and character, one that combined noble standing with devotion to the Catholic Church. Her father, Ballerin Frémyot, served as chief president of the Parliament of Burgundy, a position that demanded integrity and moral courage. As a Catholic nobleman, he was respected for his wisdom, fairness, and loyalty to the Church. His example shaped much of Jane's early outlook on life. In him, she saw what it meant to hold responsibility with humility and to live with the conviction that faith must inform every action. When Jane was only 18 months old, tragedy entered her young life. Her mother passed away, leaving a void that could never truly be filled. Too young to understand the depth of her loss, Jane nonetheless felt the absence of her mother's gentle care. Her older sister took on the role of nurturer, guiding Jane with love and attention. This early cross, carried so quietly, became one of her first lessons in leaning on God's providence in moments of sorrow. Jane grew up in an environment steeped in both culture and faith. The Frémyot home valued education, refinement, and spiritual formation in equal measure. Literature, music, and proper etiquette were taught alongside Christian virtues. Jane learned not just the accomplishments of her class, but also the moral discipline that would prepare her for the life God had planned. From a young age, Jane's devotion to God was evident. She had a deep love for the Blessed Sacrament, a love that only grew as she matured. Even as a child, she would kneel quietly during Mass, her small heart already drawn to the mystery of Christ in the Eucharist. This reverence set her apart and marked her as someone whose heart belonged entirely to God. Her gentle character quickly became known to those around her. Relatives, neighbors, and household staff all noticed her kindness, her patience, and her unusual wisdom for one so young. She treated everyone with respect, whether noble or servant, reflecting the Christian charity she had absorbed from her upbringing. These qualities, so visible in her youth, foreshadowed the saintly virtues she would live in adulthood. Throughout her childhood, the Frémyot family held firmly to the Catholic faith, even amid the religious upheaval sweeping France. The tensions of the Reformation and Counter-Reformation shaped the world outside, but within her home, Jane was nurtured in the truths of the Church. These early years provided a solid foundation of faith, preparing her for the joys, trials, and holy calling that awaited her in the path ahead. Chapter 2. Marriage and Family Life. In 1592, at the age of 20, Jane Frances Frémyot entered into marriage with Baron Christophe de Rabutin Chantal. This union brought together two noble families, but more importantly, it was founded on shared faith and mutual respect. Christophe was a man of honor and devotion, and Jane embraced her new role as wife with the same dedication she had shown in her upbringing. Their marriage was a partnership of love, trust, and a common desire to live according to God's will. The marriage proved to be a happy and virtuous one. Jane and Christophe enjoyed a deep companionship, united by mutual affection and spiritual values. They understood that their home was not just a place of comfort, but also a place where Christ was to be honored. Their life together was not without its ordinary challenges, but they faced these difficulties with patience and unity, drawing strength from their shared faith. Jane embraced her duties as a wife and mother with wholehearted dedication. In the years that followed, she bore 4 children, each of whom became the center of her daily life. She cared for them with tender love, ensuring they were nurtured in both mind and soul. Her days were filled with the ordinary rhythm of family life, guiding her children, managing the household, and maintaining an atmosphere of warmth and stability. Beyond her immediate family, Jane's heart was open to the needs of others. She was known for her compassion toward the poor of the region, often finding ways to bring them relief. Her charity was not merely a matter of duty, it flowed naturally from her love for Christ. The needy found in her a friend and benefactor, and her acts of kindness became well known among those in Monthelon and beyond. One particular story became a testament to her trust in Divine Providence. During a year of poor harvest, Jane opened her family's grain stores to feed the hungry, despite Christophe's concerns over their own supplies. She reassured him, saying that God would provide for their needs. In time, their fields yielded more than enough to replace what had been given away, strengthening the faith of all who witnessed it. The family resided at the Château of Monthelon, where the atmosphere reflected both their noble status and deep religious devotion. The castle was a place of prayer and order, where servants and family alike participated in the daily rhythm of faith. Jane and Christophe ensured that their children grew up in an environment where love for God and love for neighbor were inseparable. Through her role as wife, mother, and noblewoman, Jane became a model of Catholic motherhood. She showed that holiness could flourish in the midst of family life, that service to God begins at home, and that faithfulness in daily duties can sanctify even the most ordinary moments. This period of her life would prepare her heart for the greater mission God had in store. Chapter 3. The loss of her husband and the trial of faith. In the summer of 1601, tragedy struck Jane Frances de Chantal's peaceful home. Her husband, Baron Christophe de Rabutin Chantal, was killed in a hunting accident. The news came suddenly, breaking the rhythm of their happy family life. Christophe's death left Jane a widow at just 29 years old, with the heavy responsibility of caring for their 4 surviving children. The loss was profound, touching every part of her heart and her home. The grief she felt was deep and real, yet Jane did not let despair take hold of her soul. Her faith in God, cultivated from childhood, became her anchor. She turned immediately to prayer, trusting that God's providence would sustain her through the storm. Though her heart was wounded, she knew that the Lord remained constant, the same yesterday, today, and forever. At the funeral of her beloved husband, Jane's strength and faith shone through in a moment that moved all who witnessed it. Kneeling in prayer, she looked toward the crucifix and whispered, "Lord, you are now my husband and the father of my children." It was a profound act of surrender, an offering of her grief to God's will, and a declaration of her total trust in His care. Determined not to let her sorrow darken the lives of her children, Jane devoted herself completely to their upbringing. She resolved to raise them in the Catholic faith, to shape their hearts in virtue, and teach them the love of God that had sustained her. The home, once filled with the presence of their father, now became a place where the love of Christ became the center of their family life. The years that followed were not without struggle. As a young widow, Jane faced the practical and emotional challenges of providing for her family. There was pressure from her husband's relatives, who had opinions about how the children should be raised, and there were also concerns about managing the household finances. These difficulties could have overwhelmed her, but Jane faced them with steady patience, always turning to God for guidance. Her devotion to prayer became her source of strength. In the still hours of the morning and evening, she would kneel before the crucifix, entrusting each worry to Christ. She asked for wisdom to guide her children and for the grace to remain faithful to her duties. In her heart, she began to nurture the quiet desire to one day give herself entirely to God in religious life, should He open the way when her children were grown. Though her cross was heavy, Jane carried it with serene dignity, sustained by her steadfast trust in Divine Providence. Her life as a widow quietly testified to all that faith could turn sorrow into sanctity. This time of grief, though marked by deep loss, was also a time of grace, shaping her heart. For the next chapter, God was preparing one of deeper surrender, renewed purpose, and a more complete offering of her life to His divine will. Chapter 4. Meeting St. Francis de Sales. In 1604, God's providence brought a decisive encounter into Jane Frances de Chantal's life. While visiting her father in Dijon, she attended the Lenten sermons preached by Bishop Francis de Sales, the Bishop of Geneva. His reputation for holiness had already reached her ears, but nothing prepared her for the profound effect of hearing him speak. His words were filled with gentleness, clarity, and truth, as though they came directly from the heart of Christ to her own. From the moment she heard him, Jane felt a stirring in her soul that she could not ignore. She recognized in him a wisdom that spoke to her deepest longing for spiritual direction. It was as though God Himself was answering her unspoken prayers for guidance, offering her a shepherd who could lead her toward the fullness of her vocation. She sensed that this was not a coincidence, but the deliberate work of Divine Providence. Jane soon sought the opportunity to meet Bishop Francis in person. Their first conversation confirmed what she had already felt in her heart. In him, she found a spiritual father who understood her struggles, her desires, and her path toward holiness. Later, she would recall this moment with the words, "The Lord has appointed this priest for my soul." From that day forward, she entrusted her spiritual life into His wise and gentle care. Under his direction, Jane began a deeper transformation. Bishop Francis taught her that holiness was not reserved for grand gestures or extraordinary penances, but could be lived in daily acts of love, humility, and obedience to God's will. He encouraged her to let go of excessive scruples, to embrace peace of heart, and to cultivate patience with herself and others. His teaching brought a new serenity to her soul. The friendship that grew between them was marked by deep spiritual respect. Their letters, which are preserved to this day, reveal a beautiful exchange of encouragement and wisdom. Francis recognized Jane's gifts of leadership, compassion, and discernment. He saw that God had entrusted her with qualities that could serve not only her family but the wider church, in ways neither of them yet fully understood. Over time, Francis shared with Jane his dream of founding a new religious congregation. This community would welcome women who could not endure the severe austerities of existing orders, but who desired to dedicate themselves wholly to God. Its foundation would be humility, gentleness, and charity. He invited Jane to consider whether God might be calling her to help bring this vision to life. Jane listened with openness, her heart ready to follow wherever God might lead. She trusted that if this was His will, He would prepare the way. The seeds of a great work were planted in these conversations. A providential meeting in Dijon would soon grow into a lifelong collaboration, one that would bear fruit in the church and in the lives of countless women seeking a place to serve God in peace and joy. Chapter 5. Founding the Order of the Visitation of Holy Mary. In 1610, the vision that had been quietly growing in the hearts of Jane Frances de Chantal and Bishop Francis de Sales began to take form. With prayer, discernment, and trust in God's providence, they founded the Order of the Visitation of Holy Mary in the city of Annecy. The foundation was a response to the needs of the time, offering a place for women who desired to serve God in religious life, but could not endure the severe austerities of other orders. The mission of the Visitation was unique. It opened its doors to widows, older women, and those in fragile health souls who were often excluded from the more physically demanding forms of religious life. In this new community, they could live a life of devotion without the weight of extreme penances. Jane and Francis believed that the essence of holiness lay in love, humility, and obedience, not in rigorous bodily mortification. The spiritual heart of the order was beautifully simple: humility before God, gentleness toward others, and charity in all things. The sisters sought to imitate the quiet virtues of the Blessed Virgin Mary, whose life was one of hidden faithfulness. They lived their days in prayer, works of mercy, and mutual support, fostering a spirit of peace that reflected the love of Christ. The motto of the order captured its spirit perfectly: "Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart." These words of Jesus, so central to Francis's teaching, became the guiding light for the Visitation. Jane, as co-foundress, embodied this spirit in her leadership, showing that authority in religious life could be exercised with kindness and compassion. Jane often explained the heart of the Visitation to those who came to the convent seeking to understand its purpose. "This order," she would say, "is a place where the heart may find peace, not a place where it will be exhausted by severity." Her words reveal the deeply human side of her vision, a home for women to grow in holiness without fear or harshness. As the first superior of the order, Jane guided the sisters with a balance of firmness and tenderness. She modeled the virtues she asked of others, leading by example in prayer, humility, and service. Her deep faith and steady wisdom helped shape the character of the community in its earliest and most formative years. The Visitation grew quickly, drawing women from many parts of France. New convents were founded, and the spirit of gentleness and humility spread far beyond Annecy. What began as a simple vision inspired by divine providence became a flourishing order, one that would bless the Church for centuries to come, offering countless souls a place to encounter the love of God in peace and simplicity. Chapter 6: Religious Life and Interior Trials. When Jane Frances de Chantal entered fully into religious life, she left behind the comforts and duties of the secular world. It was a profound step of faith, trusting entirely in God's providence. Though she had already surrendered much through widowhood and loss, the decision to live within the cloister brought a new kind of separation. Her life would now be completely dedicated to prayer, service, and the guidance of the Visitation sisters. Yet this transition was not without sacrifice. Jane was still a mother, and her heart remained deeply bound to her children. Though she entrusted them to God's care, there were moments of deep longing when she missed their voices, their milestones, and the ordinary joys of family life. This pain became another offering to the Lord, a hidden cross that she bore quietly within her daily prayer. The growth of the order brought its own challenges. As new convents were founded, financial strains often arose. Jane had to navigate the delicate balance of expanding the mission while ensuring that each house remained supported. These burdens weighed heavily, but she never allowed worry to overshadow her trust in God's provision. Time and again, she reminded her sisters that the Visitation was God's work, and He would sustain it. Criticism also came from outside. The Visitation's way of life was gentler than the strict austerities common in other orders, and some questioned its authenticity. Critics doubted whether holiness could truly thrive without rigorous penances. Jane, however, held firm to the vision she and Francis de Sales had received, that love, humility, and charity were the true heart of the religious life. She answered criticism not with argument, but with the quiet example of her community's faithfulness. Jane's unwavering faith and humble obedience became a steady source of strength for her sisters. She urged them to keep their hearts in peace, to respond with charity toward those who misunderstood their way of life, and to deepen their prayer and humility. In her calm presence, the sisters saw the living spirit of the Visitation, gentle, steadfast, and completely anchored in trust for God's providential will in all circumstances. In her own life, Jane kept a steady rhythm of prayer that gave strength to her leadership. She was frequently seen kneeling before the Blessed Sacrament, lifting her sisters, the Church, and the world's needs to God. Her deep personal devotion spoke more loudly than words, showing the community by example that prayer was the true foundation, the unshakable support upon which all their service and every work of the Visitation must rest. In time, the perseverance of Jane and her sisters bore fruit. The Church came to see the Visitation as a genuine expression of religious life, one that brought many souls closer to God. Official recognition affirmed the order's place within the Church. Jane's fidelity through trial had strengthened the Visitation, ensuring that its gentle charism would continue to grow and flourish for generations to come. Chapter 7. The Death of St. Francis de Sales. In 1622, deep sorrow entered the life of Jane Frances de Chantal. Bishop Francis de Sales, her spiritual father, friend, and co-founder of the Visitation, passed away. His death left a great emptiness in her heart and in the heart of the order. For many years, he had been her guide and steady support, a voice of wisdom in both joy and trial. Now she would continue forward without his earthly presence beside her. Her grief was sincere and profound, yet it did not shake her resolve. Jane understood that the mission she shared with Francis belonged first to God. Though her heart ached, she anchored herself in prayer and trust. The same Lord who had brought Francis into her life would also give her strength to continue. Her love for the Visitation and her confidence in Divine Providence sustained her in this difficult time. A cherished story from this period shows the depth of her faith. When she received the final letter written by Francis, she placed it before the tabernacle in the convent chapel. That night, she remained in prayer before the Blessed Sacrament, offering her sorrow to God. It was an act of total surrender, a renewal of her dedication to the mission she and Francis had begun together. With Francis gone, the full weight of leadership now rested on Jane's shoulders. She skillfully guided the Visitation through a sensitive time of transition, keeping the sisters united in heart and mission. Her calm and gentle leadership reassured every community that their foundation stood firm, deeply anchored in God's will. In her steady hands, the order remained faithful to its spirit and secure in its path forward. Jane worked tirelessly to maintain harmony among the growing number of convents. She traveled when possible to visit communities, encouraging the sisters in person. When travel was not possible, she sent letters filled with tenderness, offering guidance, encouragement, and practical advice. Her words carried the same spirit of gentleness that Francis had shown her, building unity and trust among the houses. Despite the loss of her closest collaborator, the Visitation continued to grow. Jane remained completely faithful to the spirit in which the order had been founded: humility, gentleness, and charity. New convents were established, and the charism of the Visitation spread across France. Jane made certain that every new foundation preserved the peace, simplicity, and love that were the heart of the community. Through these years, Jane's steadfast leadership became even more evident. Her fidelity in this time of loss strengthened her sisters and inspired their confidence. Though she mourned Francis deeply, she understood that the work they had begun was truly the work of God. No sorrow, however great, could bring it to an end. The mission continued, and Jane remained its faithful servant, leading the Visitation forward with courage and peace. Chapter 8. The Flourishing of the Visitation Order. As the years passed, the Visitation Order spread far beyond the quiet beginnings in Annecy. Under Jane Frances de Chantal's steady leadership, new convents arose in major cities and small towns alike. Lyon, Grenoble, Paris, and Bordeaux became home to visitation houses. By the end of her life, more than 80 monasteries had been established across France, each carrying the gentle spirit she and Francis de Sales had envisioned. The expansion brought practical challenges that demanded wisdom. Jane understood that rapid growth could lead to divisions or a loss of the order's character. To prevent this, she worked closely with each new foundation, appointing superiors carefully and ensuring that the constitutions were faithfully observed. She wrote countless letters, offering encouragement, correction, and guidance, shaping the order's unity even from a distance. Her correspondence became a lifeline for the Visitation. Jane's letters were not merely administrative, they were deeply spiritual. She encouraged the sisters to remain faithful in prayer, to live in harmony, and to guard the simplicity that marked their vocation. These letters, preserved to this day, show a woman of deep insight and maternal care, capable of strengthening communities spread across a vast territory. Jane also invested in the training of new superiors. She invited promising sisters to Annecy or visited them in their convents, mentoring them personally. She taught them to lead with humility, to avoid unnecessary severity, and to trust in God's providence. By forming strong leaders, she ensured that each house of the Visitation remained firmly rooted in its founding spirit. The order's growth caught the attention of many in the church. Bishops and priests visited Visitation convents and witnessed firsthand the peace and devotion of the sisters. Some sought Jane's advice on matters of governance, spiritual direction, or pastoral care. Her reputation as a wise counselor spread far beyond the walls of the cloister, and she became a trusted voice in the Catholic renewal of France. The Visitation also had a quiet but profound impact on the wider Catholic community. Its monasteries became centers of spiritual refreshment, where lay people came for guidance, confession, or simply the peace of prayer. The sisters' example of humility and charity became a witness that reached far beyond the cloister, touching hearts in cities and villages across the country. As the years passed, Jane could see the abundant fruits of her labor. The Visitation was no longer just a small beginning, it had become a strong and united family, spread across France, deeply rooted in the life of the Church. What began as a seed in Annecy had grown into a living network of communities, each a place of refuge, prayer, and the gentle presence of Christ. Chapter 9. Seasons of Loss, Crosses of Love. The years brought both blessings and sorrows to Jane Frances de Chantal. Among the heaviest crosses she bore was the loss of two of her children, a beloved son and a cherished daughter, within a short span of time. Each death pierced her mother's heart, reviving the pain she had carried since widowhood. Yet even in grief, Jane surrendered her sorrow to God, trusting that His love embraced her children in eternal life. Not long after these personal losses, Jane began to experience the strain of prolonged illness. Her body grew weaker, but her spirit remained firm. She continued to fulfill her duties as much as her strength allowed, leading the Visitation with quiet determination. Her perseverance showed the sisters that holiness was not dependent on physical vigor, but on fidelity to one's vocation in every circumstance. During this same period, France itself was facing political and religious turmoil. Conflicts between Catholic and Protestant factions, as well as tensions between the monarchy and various regions, unsettled the life of the Church. Jane often found herself in situations requiring great wisdom and diplomacy. She counseled peace, encouraging her sisters to remain focused on prayer and charity rather than becoming entangled in disputes. Her deep faith was never more evident than in the face of loss. When her daughter died, those around her expected expressions of sorrow. Instead, Jane gently said, "The cross of the Lord is a gift." These words revealed her complete trust in God's providence, her belief that every cross carried within it a hidden grace. This spirit strengthened all who heard her. Despite her own suffering, Jane remained attentive to the needs of her sisters. She continued to encourage them, reminding them to keep their eyes fixed on Christ. Her letters during this time are filled with gentle counsel and steady hope. She never allowed her personal trials to overshadow her duty to guide and inspire the communities entrusted to her care. Her patience became a powerful witness. The sisters saw in her a living example of what it meant to bear trials with dignity and peace. Visitors to the convent were often struck by her serenity. Her quiet endurance, her unwavering charity, and her constant prayer became a source of inspiration, not only to her own communities but also to the wider church. Through it all, Jane prepared her heart for the moment when she would meet the Lord. This was not a preparation marked by fear but by love. Her trials purified her soul, drawing her ever closer to God. Each day, she renewed her trust in His mercy, confident that He would one day welcome her home. In this way, her later trials became the final shaping of a soul wholly given to Christ. Chapter 10. Passing into the Peace of Christ. On the 13th of December, 1641, the long and faithful journey of Jane Frances de Chantal came gently to its close. She was in Moulins at the time, continuing her visits to the houses of the Visitation. At 69 years of age, she had given more than 3 decades of her life to the service of the order she had founded, and her heart remained as devoted to God's will as it had been in her youth. Her final days were marked not by fear, but by trust. She had lived through sorrow and joy, success and trial, always anchored in divine providence. Now she approached death with the same calm surrender that had shaped every chapter of her life. Surrounded by the sisters of the Moulins convent, she prepared to give her soul into the hands of the Lord she had served so faithfully. Her passing was peaceful, a quiet moment of prayer and release. Those who were present noted the serenity on her face, as if she was simply resting in the presence of Christ. Her death was not the end of her mission, but the completion of the offering she had made since her earliest days, a life wholly given to God in love. The sisters of the Visitation mourned deeply. Jane had been more than a foundress and leader. She had been their spiritual mother, their example, and their comfort in times of difficulty. In their grief, they turned to prayer, entrusting her soul to the mercy of God and giving thanks for the gift of her life among them. News of her death spread quickly, bringing sorrow to the many who had known her or been touched by her counsel. Across France, people remembered her as the gentle mother, a woman who had guided the Visitation with wisdom, patience, and love. Her example inspired renewed devotion in those who sought to follow her path of humility and charity. Her remains were brought to Annecy, the cradle of the Visitation, to rest beside her beloved friend and co-founder, St. Francis de Sales. It was a fitting place for her earthly body to remain, close to the mission they had built together. The sisters of Annecy received her with reverence, knowing that her spirit would continue to guide them from heaven. Jane left behind more than the memory of a holy life. She left a living legacy. The Visitation order, now well established, continued to flourish in the spirit she had nurtured. Her example of gentle strength, steadfast faith, and loving service became a model for generations of sisters to come. In her peaceful death, the Church gained not only a saintly intercessor, but a lasting witness to the beauty of a life surrendered entirely to Christ. Chapter 11. Canonization and Spiritual Legacy. After the peaceful passing of Jane Frances de Chantal in 1641, the fragrance of her holiness lingered among those who had known her. The sisters of the Visitation, clergy, and laity spoke of her as a saint, remembering her gentleness, charity, and unwavering trust in divine providence. Her memory was cherished not only in the houses she had founded but throughout France, and soon the Church began considering her cause for canonization. Miracles attributed to her intercession began to be reported. The faithful, turning to her in prayer, found comfort in their trials and healing in their sickness. These favors were investigated by the Church with great care. Testimonies from the Visitation sisters and many others confirmed that Jane's maternal care did not end with her death. Her spiritual presence continued to guide, comfort, and inspire those who sought her help. The official process advanced steadily. Pope Benedict XIV recognized her heroic virtues, and in 1751 he declared her blessed. The beatification was a moment of profound joy for the Visitation Order and the Church. It was a recognition that Jane had lived the gospel faithfully as a wife, mother, widow, religious, and foundress. Her life showed that holiness is possible in every state of life, and her witness was offered as an example for all the faithful. More miracles followed, strengthening her cause. These were carefully documented and studied, confirming the power of her intercession. Finally, in 1767, Pope Pius IX solemnly canonized Jane Frances de Chantal. With this act, the Church officially declared what many had long believed, that Jane was a saint in heaven, interceding for the Church she had served so lovingly on earth. Saint Jane Frances is honored as a model of patience, humility, and gentle strength. Her life demonstrated that true holiness is not found only in extraordinary feats, but in faithful perseverance through daily duties and trials. Her example continues to offer hope to widows, mothers, religious sisters, and all who seek to serve God in ordinary life. Her spiritual legacy is rooted in the charism of the Visitation. Be gentle and humble in all things. This simple, profound way of living the gospel has shaped countless hearts through the centuries. Her teachings, letters, and the ongoing life of the order continue to carry her message to the Church. The Visitation remains a living witness to the gentleness she embodied. Her feast day is celebrated each year on August 12. Around the world, Visitation, convents, and the faithful give thanks for her life and intercession. Through this annual celebration, the Church recalls the beauty of a life surrendered entirely to God's will. Her message endures: to trust God completely, to love with a humble heart, and to find sanctity in the ordinary moments of each day. Chapter 12. Prayer to Saint Jane Frances de Chantal. O gentle Saint Jane Frances de Chantal, we thank God for the witness of your holy life. As a faithful wife, devoted mother, courageous widow, and foundress of the Visitation Order, you showed that every vocation can become a path to sanctity. Pray for us that we may trust God as completely as you did and follow him with generous hearts. Saint Jane Frances, we ask your special prayers for mothers and families. You understood both the joys and sacrifices of raising children in faith. Intercede for every parent that they may be filled with wisdom, patience, and love. May every home become a place where Christ is welcomed, honored, and faithfully served. We also remember those who carry the sorrow of losing a loved one. You experienced the pain of widowhood, yet never lost confidence in divine providence. Pray that all who grieve may find comfort in God's presence, strength for each new day, and the hope that comes from trusting in his loving plan. Pray as well for all women consecrated to Christ, especially the sisters of the Visitation Order. May they remain faithful to their vows, growing daily in humility, gentleness, and charity. Through their lives of prayer and service, may they lead many souls to discover the peace and mercy of the Sacred Heart. Dear Saint Jane Francis, obtain for us the grace to grow in humility, patience, and surrender to God's will. Teach us that holiness is found not only in extraordinary works, but also in the quiet faithfulness of ordinary life. Help us welcome each day as an opportunity to love Christ more deeply. Pray that we may remain faithful to the vocation God has entrusted to each of us. In moments of trial, strengthen our confidence in His providence. When we are discouraged, remind us that His grace is always sufficient and that every cross, embraced with love, brings us closer to Him. Saint Jane Francis de Chantal, we place ourselves under your loving intercession. Lead us to a deeper friendship with Jesus and a more complete trust in our Heavenly Father. May your example inspire us to persevere in faith until the day we rejoice with you in the everlasting peace and glory of God's kingdom. Amen.